Welcome to The Shift Show with Adriana Bucci. Join me every week to learn all about narcissistic abuse recovery, healing from physical and emotional pain after the abuse, and everything else to do with toxic people and how they affect your physical, emotional, and mental health. And no, you are not the crazy one. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Let's get right to it.
Hey, and welcome back to The Shift Show. Today's episode is all about, it's all for anybody who is feeling like it took them too long to realize that they were, in fact, dealing with a narcissistic abuser all this time. I know this feeling all too well. When I first found out that my mother was a narcissist, it really kind of felt like I was kind of jolted out of this deep sleep. It was like I was waking up out of a coma even, to the realization that my life as I knew it was basically a lie. And it was wild, honestly. I do have the story in its own separate podcast episode here on how I found out that my mom was a narcissist, but to basically summarize that whole thing, once upon a time, I was in the middle of a very confusing breakup after a very, very short relationship with someone whose behavior I ended up having to Google because of how confused I was. Now, I dated narcissists before this one, but it was easier for me to justify that I was the issue. And this particular relationship, it was so quick, just how the switch flipped, that I was like, hey, what the hell? This doesn't even make sense. We didn't even go through the 4 seasons for, the change to happen this fast. So I was just very confused. And of course, then I went down the Google rabbit hole, learned that I had a fun little pattern of dating men like this. I can't even call them men, honestly. Children. And then I went further down that Google rabbit hole and realized that my mother was also a narcissist. And I found this, checklist kind of thing of 10 signs that your mom's a narcissist, and a lot of it checked out, and then went down a YouTube rabbit hole. It was the whole thing. And one of my first thoughts was, why did I only figure this out now? My entire life has been wasted on horrible people. I'm too old for this. And I was in my mid to late 20s. I was 26-ish, right? So, I mean, that's not old. And, eventually, after much healing and inner work, I would come to accept that there was really no way that I could have learned about this any sooner, because, I knew it wasn't exactly reasonable to expect narcissists to let me know about their manipulation tactics. So I eventually accepted it. But, I get people all the time in my comments on Instagram, in my DMs, even clients that I've worked with and continue to work with that feel like it's too late for me. I should have known about this earlier. I wasted so much of my life. What do I have to look forward to anymore? And the ironic part of this is that people who are literally 21 years old say this. It's not just people who are older. And if anything, the pattern that I've observed, at least, is that people who are younger and in their 20s and 30s are the ones who say this the most. And I promise you, it doesn't matter how old you are. As long as you are a living, breathing human being, I don't care if you're 100 years old. If you're just finding out about this now, guess what? You get to break the pattern. You get to break the cycle. You get to be acquainted with the truth. Okay? It is never, ever too late to see the truth and hold space for yourself to heal. Now, all that out of the way, I'm going to also say that we cannot sugarcoat how much it sucks to come to terms with all of this. Let's be realistic here. This is a very, very painful truth to come to terms with. And it's, almost second nature to kind of go back into denial about things. And I personally did that as well, okay? So I found out my mother was a narcissist in 2014. I didn't fully accept it until early 2016 when I found legal documents that supported that she was lying to me about a lot of things. Now, I think that's just going to have to be its own podcast episode. And I feel like I'm at a point where I can just talk about this without caring because, it's not like she's gonna find my podcast. She passed away 2 years ago. So there is actually a podcast episode about that called When a Narcissistic Mother Dies, if that is something that you are worrying about, okay? I'd encourage you to listen to that podcast. I made it shortly after she did pass away, so it would have been sometime in late 2020. She passed away in July of 2020, and I think I made that episode in like August-ish, maybe September-ish. Just check back in the season 1 section and you'll find it. And, that's just for anyone who has a narcissistic parent that is like terrified of the inevitable, because realistically, like, parents don't really outlive their children. I really thought that my mom was going to outlive me. And then, the universe worked in some very interesting ways. I'll tell that whole story in the near future, actually. I think that'll probably be one of my next episodes. We'll see. So anyways, I went into denial for quite a bit, and I was met with this proof in the form of legal documents that she was actually a narcissist and that she had been lying to me for my whole life about very, very significant things. Things that would have really changed the whole trajectory of my life. And I thought it was too late for me. And here I am, years later, realizing it was never too late for me. It's never too late for anybody. Ever. Okay? I don't care what decade you're in your life. I don't care if you're in your 70s. I don't care if you're in your 60s, 40s, 30s, 20s. I don't care if you're a teenager. It is not too late for you. And the more that you allow yourself to kind of, explore what does that mean for you? This whole it being too late, right? Because the reality is you are still alive. If you're hearing this, you're alive. You're living and breathing. You see the truth now. Sure, you didn't see the truth back then, but how are you supposed to know what the truth was? Okay? And regardless of your age, you absolutely can start taking those small baby steps forward to heal, regardless of your age. Because as much as all of this sucks, in the end, the truth won. Okay? There are people who literally get to their deathbeds without having any idea that what they went through their entire life was abuse. Okay, so just being aware that this was not your fault. You did nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with you is huge, all right? And it really, like, we can't sugarcoat it at the end of the day, right? If only, people say it all the time, if only I found out sooner, my entire life could be different. And I agree, because this is true. If I had found out sooner, a lot of things would have been way different in my life as well. If I knew about narcissism, like in high school, even in elementary school, even, like, that would have been cool. Like, I would have made some very different decisions in order to protect my freedom. I would have known not to share a bank account with my mother, like, there's just so many things and so many lost opportunities and so many what ifs. And you know what that is? That's repressed grief. Okay? Grief is for a loss or something that should have happened that never happened. And the loss doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that passes away. Obviously, there's going to be grief with that type of situation. But grief can also be the loss of life experiences, the loss of like, you know, just having a functional life that, you know, it was your birthright to begin with. So you have to accept that it sucks, because it's valid to feel this way. It's the truth. It sucks, and the truth is shit sometimes. So I would encourage you, and chances are you've never gotten this advice in your life before, because we don't live in a society that does emotions. I would encourage you, honestly, to accept every emotion that comes through without judging it. Because you know who judged your emotions? The narcissist did. The narcissist is the one who has made you afraid of your emotions. And that is part of what the deconditioning from narcissistic abuse process is all about. Getting in tune with your emotions, accepting your emotions, even the shitty ones, especially the shitty ones. Creating a sense of safety to let yourself feel them so that those emotions can run their course through your nervous system. That is literally how to heal. That is literally the cure for chronic pain, okay? I know this sounds wild. I know this sounds like bullshit, and you're probably, if you're new to this podcast, you're like, what the hell does this have to do with chronic pain? I have chronic pain. Oh my gosh, what is she talking about? And so I would encourage you to check some of my older episodes from like the beginning of when I first launched this podcast. I talk about the mind-body connection and the work of Dr. Sarno and repressed emotions and how it has to do with childhood trauma. And being raised by a narcissist, believe it or not, is a form of childhood trauma. I didn't want to accept it at first, but, you know, inevitably, I did the work, I did the inner work, and it is trauma at the end of the day, because it definitely changes how your brain functions. So, you know, just to kind of give you some hope that you're not too old. And I don't care how old you are. You are not too old to be figuring this out now, okay? If people in their very early 20s think it's too late for them, like, I should have just never bothered continuing to learn, right? So just keep that in mind, okay? And I've worked with people in their 60s, and they've made some amazing shifts and life changes. And, you know, there's even a podcast episode. One of my amazing clients, Nadir, check out her episode. She's 60 and she broke the cycle, okay? She did the work and it was so worth it. So there's no age for this, okay? That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Just the fact, you know, if you think it's too late, I just want you to know that just the fact that you were able to put into words what happened to you, being able to put into words that this was narcissistic abuse, that's such a big deal, okay? When your family is toxic feels familiar. So you end up going through life, meeting toxic people, thinking that the way that they treat you is normal. And some people never see the fact that it's not normal simply because they're so in that bubble of the situation. It doesn't occur to them to Google the behavior. They don't even know that they can Google the behavior. They don't come across any of this content. The algorithms that, you know, I'm not even gonna get started with algorithms, but, you know, don't show them the content on narcissistic abuse on whatever social media they use. There's a lot of people who never learn about narcissistic abuse, and they go their whole lives never learning about it, and they never know, and they never know that they can heal from it. So, not to minimize the pain of finding out, because that's absolutely valid, it is not too late, is the point that I'm making here, okay? And honor the pain of finding out. Let it hurt, because the more that you try to run away from the pain, guess what? It doesn't go anywhere. So the more you acknowledge the pain, you allow it to be there, invite it in. Let it hang out with you for a while. Let it be there without trying to change it. That is how to process that pain, okay? And now these people who never see the fact that it's not normal and they never learn about narcissistic abuse, it doesn't mean anything bad about them, okay? They literally do not know any better. You don't know what you don't know. And when you're so convinced that abuse is normal, you're not going to do research on it. And when the people around you are abusive, it's not like they're going to be the ones to tell you like, oh, hey, guess what? I've been abusing you your whole life. Punked. That's not how it works, okay? So just some final thoughts here. If you are somebody who is struggling with feeling like it's too late for you to have realized that you've been narcissistically abused. It's not too late. It doesn't matter what your age is, okay? You can see the truth now, and you can start taking small steps to heal. And, you know, there will probably be a big grief component of all the things that you potentially missed out on all these years, all these decades from not knowing. But that wasn't your fault, right? And honoring that pain, making space for yourself to acknowledge that pain. Don't tell the narcissist about your pain, because they're obviously going to use that as supply. This is not something you want to be having conversations with the narcissist about, okay? I'd encourage you to journal about this. So just do some rage journaling. Pen, paper, 20-minute timer. You can even do a 10-minute timer. Doesn't matter. Just start jotting down whatever's on your brain onto that paper. Let the words flow. Don't judge what you're writing. Remember that thoughts are not real and feelings are not facts. And just see where those thoughts take you. Because eventually, once you release those thoughts, you'll be able to access the emotion. And then when you can access the emotion and let yourself fully feel it, and sometimes that means crying it out. And that's okay. It's all good to cry, right? Like, crying is great. The literal, stress hormones come out in your tears. So why not release it, right? Don't do it in front of the narcissist. Do not ever do any inner work around the narcissist, okay? If you still live with them, go to another room. You know, even if you have to lock yourself in the washroom and pretend you're taking a really long shower just so you can get 10 minutes of journaling in, do that, because that's going to help you untangle your thoughts. The more you can untangle your thoughts, the more you can process your emotions, the more clarity you're going to get. And you're not going to get any clarity from talking it out with the narcissist, okay? You might not even get clarity from going to therapy, honestly. Therapists, a lot of them, I'm not shitting on therapists, but I've heard this story way too many times for me to not say anything about it, and I've been through this story too many times for me to not say anything about it, but a lot of therapists don't know shit about narcissistic abuse. They don't know about these insidious manipulation tactics that narcissists use against their targets. They don't know about trauma. Did you know that it's not a requirement for a therapist to be trauma informed, which is just absolutely mind-blowing to me? And so, if you do have a great therapist that gets it, is trauma informed, and has actually been able to help you, that's awesome. But you probably wouldn't be on this podcast trying to understand everything if that was the case. But anyways, I'm just going to leave it at that. But there are the unicorns out there. So if you do have a unicorn therapist, keep them, okay? They're out there. They're hard to find. I don't know how to help you find them. I haven't come across one, but they're in different parts of the world, so that's going to be some research that you're going to have to do. But there are other ways that you can heal from this as well, okay? So journaling is the one tool that's brought me the most clarity about everything in my life, okay? Bouncing ideas off of somebody else can be helpful sometimes, but sometimes they don't give the most helpful advice, especially when they don't understand narcissism, especially when they don't understand trauma, especially when they don't understand the impacts of repressed emotions, repressed fear, guilt, shame, sense of obligation, especially when they don't understand narcissism in a family structure and the stigma that comes with being an estranged adult child from your parent, right? It's just, there's so many different factors in this that a lot of the times there's not that many people that you can talk to about this, and that sucks. But sometimes you don't need to talk to anything about it. You need to talk to yourself. You need to empty out the thoughts in your brain, and see where that takes you. And that's why journaling is amazing. So, brain dump all your thoughts, destroy the paper after, okay? Because that's going to tell your subconscious that, hey, this no longer serves me. I don't need this. And that's a really huge baby step to take, and like stick to that on a regular basis. If you can journal once a day, twice a day, 3 to 5 times a week, whatever, that is going to get you so much further. And you would be surprised at how much clarity you can gain from it. Now, you might be telling yourself all these different reasons why you can't journal. And I'm going to share a bit about myself. I have ADHD and I hate journaling. Journaling was actually how I found out that I have ADHD. I was diagnosed as an adult because, I was neglected as a child, obviously. And so, like, the therapist this was an actually helpful therapist, like, great experience, but it wasn't anything to do with the narcissistic abuse stuff. She wanted me to do like a trauma narrative, but I couldn't put the pen to paper, but I could talk about it over and over and over again. And then she's like, I think you have adult ADHD, look into it. I looked into it, got diagnosed. Yeah, absolutely. And so I would tell myself, when I first learned about, the rage journaling that I just kind of described a few minutes ago, I would say, well, I have adult ADHD, so I can't journal. But eventually I knew that was my brain just trying to protect me from the repressed emotions. And I worked through the resistance, because for me, it was like severe chronic pain that I had. And I was so desperate to get out of that physical pain. So I was like, okay, fine. I will try this weird journaling exercise. Let's see what happens. And sure enough, it helped. Pain-free after 4 months. But whatever excuse your brain is giving you that you can't journal, you don't have time, it's an ADHD thing, it's this, it's that, whatever, it's just your brain trying to protect you, because your brain literally believes it's going to die from feeling those emotions, okay? Because when your emotions have been minimized from childhood, your brain actually interpreted them as a life and death situation. It's like, okay, if I'm pissing my mom off by being sad about this thing, she's not going to love me anymore. If she doesn't love me anymore, I'm going to die, right? That all happens when your brain's in development in childhood. And, that really just goes to show, like, just how diabolical narcissistic parents are, because their kids don't have a shot in hell at, like, decent mental health, quite frankly, because their emotions are being manipulated against them at all times, all for the sake of the parent gaining supply. Like, it's disgusting. So I will stop rambling about this. Again, it is not too late for you to have figured out that you have been narcissistically abused. It doesn't matter what your age is. Just the fact that you're aware of the truth is a big deal. As painful as it is, it's better to be acquainted with a painful truth than to continue living a lie. And doing the inner work one baby step at a time is such a big deal, okay? You can do the inner work on your own. Journaling is completely free. Go for it. But there are options that can also be helpful, right? There's therapy, coaching, communities, and I currently have a brand new community that I just launched quite recently, and it is specifically for survivors of narcissistic abuse to come together, connect with other survivors, and just knowing that you're not alone. While everyone has a bit of a different story in the community, just seeing other people's stories will help you feel like you're not crazy, right? And in the community, there's access to my most helpful courses. I have Emotions 101, which shows you how to process your emotions. There is Conditioning 101, which teaches you how you were conditioned by narcissistic abuse. And there is How a Narcissist's Mind Works, which teaches you exactly that, how a narcissist's mind works and how you were manipulated. And those are the 3 most important courses in the membership, honestly, because they're the basis of all the other courses. So there's way more courses than just those 3, but Those 3 are available to both tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. In tier 1, like, it's basically like under $1 a day to join. So, you know, it's amazing. And tier 2 is also quite affordable. You know, it's maybe the price of like a Starbucks latte every day, right? And you actually get even more support in tier 2. I am offering one-on-one Voxer coaching days once per month in tier 2. And basically all day on whatever day of the month that I choose, it gets chosen a couple weeks in advance so that you're aware of it. You can go back and forth with me on Voxer privately, just me and you, and you can get my guidance that way. So that's what I offer for helping people heal. You know, I don't really do the one-on-one or small group coaching anymore, just ever since catching COVID and needing to sort of slow the heck down. This has been my most favorite offering that I've ever offered in my entire coaching career. Like, I love this membership so much, and it's just seeing the shifts that people are making just from having this community. Because if you think about it, where do you really find a community for survivors of narcissistic abuse? Like, it's not going to happen at your local library, right? And so having it in its own app, so that's a really cool thing too. It's in its own app, separate from your social media, and it's literally like you have my guidance in your pocket. So it's super cool. The link is in the description for anyone who's interested in joining. You know, check it out, see if it's something that's for you. If it is, choose your tier, join, on board, and you will get instant access to literally all the things and all the wonderful perks of the membership. I'm not going to go into each perk of each tier because that's not what this whole episode's about, but there's a lot of awesome stuff in there. So just check out the link if this is something that interests you. And it's for any survivors of narcissistic abuse, so parents, like narcissistic parents, significant others, etc. Like, there's no discrimination on what kind of survivor I accept into it, and yeah, everyone is welcome. So I hope to see you there, and if not, I hope to see you in the next podcast episode. So I will end this here. Again, you're not too old to figure this out, I promise you. You've got this, one day at a time, one baby step at a time, and I will see you next time. Bye.